tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
If these cops were dealt with, properly at that time, my son may well be alive.
Demanding answers 7 years later, the mother of a man killed in a confrontation with police learned some disturbing details. Plus, another projected jump in inflation, and with it, an investigation into grocery stores and escalating food prices.
The line starts around 8:30 a.m. and it doesn't stop till about 8 p.m. tonight.
And the sweets, the lights, the message, how British Columbians are celebrating Diwali.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Anita Bathe. 7 years after a Seashelt man died in a confrontation with Vancouver police, CBC has learned that 4 of those officers on scene at the time were already under investigation because of another violent arrest. Bethany Lindsay is speaking with Miles Gray's mother as she continues to look for answers in her son's death.
This paper that I'm going to show you is 7 years old.
In the summer of 2015, Margie Gray got the call. Her son Miles had just been killed in a confrontation with as many as 9 Vancouver police officers. He was unarmed, kicked, punched, kneed and pepper sprayed, bound at both the arms and the legs. His injuries were so extensive, an exact cause of death has never been determined. Another mom, Carol DeBoer, had seen the news.
I don't know, I just had this gut feeling about the situation, and that's when I kind of reached out to Margie thinking there's something wrong here.
Her son Mitchell had had his own run-in with the VPD. His jaw and finger had been broken and his arm bitten by a dog. Both arrests took place in South Vancouver just 6 weeks apart, so DeBoer followed her gut and called Margie Gray. She listed off the names of the officers involved in Mitch's arrest, and Margie Gray wrote them down.
I've had it with me for 7 years. So these are the names of Mitch's police officers that beat him.
It's taken that long for her to confirm the names of the officers involved in her son's death, thanks to a report from the Office of the Police Complaints Commissioner, which is investigating. 4 officers were on both lists.
If these cops were dealt with, properly at that time, my son may well be alive.
I was disgusted, period. They should not be on the job.
One of the constables, Bo Spencer, is now facing an assault charge connected to yet another arrest in 2017. Chief Civilian Director Ron McDonald of the Independent Investigations Office says he sometimes sees the same officers popping up in multiple investigations, but they usually belong to specialized units.
It wouldn't be uncommon to see members of the emergency response team come up more than once. It's not uncommon to see someone who is a dog master come up more than once.
The officers involved in each of these reports, though, weren't involved in those specialized units.
So in general, it would be somewhat unusual in a relatively short period of time to see a normal, regular frontline officer to come up in a series of cases.
In the Miles Gray case, McDonald's team concluded the officers may have committed a crime, but Crown prosecutors didn't approve charges. In Mitchell DeBoer's arrest, the IAO said he'd resisted the officers, quote, at every turn, and they found no wrongdoing. The Vancouver Police Department has declined an interview for this story, but in a statement, Sergeant Steve Addison says the officers were cleared by both the IAO and the OPCC in DeBoer's arrest, and it wouldn't be appropriate to comment on Miles Gray while the OPCC is investigating and a coroner's inquest is pending. At this point, Margie Gray says she has little hope for accountability in her son's death.
The problem is, this shouldn't have happened in the first place. Like, where is the training?
It's just one of many questions that still lingers for this grieving mom. Bethany Lindsay, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, what was meant to be an important gathering and poignant moment of apology is turning into a fiasco. The VPD officers who wrongfully arrested an Indigenous man and his granddaughter at a Vancouver BMO were supposed to travel to Bella Bella to offer one final piece of justice. But tonight, our Angela Starrett is bringing us the frustration from the community upon learning those officers may not be coming.
Rumblings that the arresting officers would not be attending the apology feast swept through this community, causing pain and frustration yesterday. But the community was hopeful that the rumors weren't true. While high-ranking constables, including Vancouver Police Chief Adam Palmer and a number of board members, did arrive in the community, the two officers that detained Johnson and his granddaughter weren't on board. That's hit the community hard.
I take it very personally.
Johnson hoped the ceremony would provide his family justice after being subjected to trauma at the hands of the officers. In 2019, the VPD responded to a 911 call from the Bank of Montreal claiming a fraud was in progress. The bank manager thought the pair's Indian status cards were fake IDs. On scene, police handcuffed Johnson and his then 12-year-old granddaughter for an hour on a busy downtown street.
I keep thinking if it wasn't First Nations people, they probably would have took me into an office in the building somewhere and did it there. But no, they dragged us out to the street and cuffed me and my granddaughter. That's one thing I'll never ever forget.
A human rights settlement was agreed to between Johnson and the Vancouver Police Board. They agreed to an apology feast and paid $25,000 towards it and make every effort to ensure the arresting officers were present. In a statement today, the Vancouver Police Board said, quote, "We are unable to speak to why the officers are not in attendance, and we hope assumptions are not made regarding the constable's decision to not be at the ceremony." It also added that it's committed to building a relationship with the Celtic Nation and other First Nations communities in the spirit of truth and reconciliation. But for the elected chief of the Celtic Nation, it's not enough.
Well, it sounds really good, but when you don't take that responsibility and accountability to show up, words can be quite empty.
She said under Celtic law, protocols do not allow for people to stand in place of others. That means the ceremony will unfold in a different way.
This uplifting ceremony will be centered on Max and his granddaughter, his grandson, his family, and our community.
The Celtic Nation and Maxwell Johnson are calling the constable's decision to not attend a failure to take responsibility for systemic racism in the Vancouver Police Department. They also worry the decision will overshadow what was meant to be a night of truth and justice. Angela Starrett, CBC News, Bella Bella, British Columbia.
Well, BC NDP leader David Eby addressed the party caucus at the legislature today as he inches towards becoming our province's premier. Eby joined current Premier John Horgan for a walking photo op. Horgan plans to retire in December to spend more time with his family after his throat cancer diagnosis earlier this year. After the photos, Eby addressed the caucus, saying he's eager to get to work.
Briefly, wanted to take a moment to thank Premier John Horgan and for his mentorship and leadership. And, really thrilled and excited to be here in Victoria with my colleagues, and looking forward to starting the work. And it's an exciting time.
Eby has announced a 100-day plan for the province, which he says is focused on results. It's unclear exactly when he will be sworn in as premier. Well, the Surrey School District is getting a bit more than it bargained for this school year. District officials say they expected 900 new students, but now have more than 2,000, forcing them to figure out how to meet increased demand.
So in the short term, our district is utilizing portables. We currently have about 334 portables in use in our school district. The portables allow us to keep our students at their neighborhood schools. So it is a short-term solution, but in the longer term, we are working with our partners at the province to increase capacity in our district.
The province has invested nearly $500 million to expand classroom capacity province-wide, and the Surrey School District says it's working closely to secure funding to build more schools.
Added 6 new schools to our district and 7 additions. So these are expanding other schools to meet the capacity needs of their community. and we currently have one new school under construction, another new school in the design phase, and there's a number of additions and expansion projects currently underway. So there's a lot of construction in our district to meet the capacity needs, but we need more given the amount of growth that we're experiencing.
In their latest capital budget plan, the district has requested funding for 9 new schools and 16 additions to existing schools. At this point, it's not clear whether any of the projects will be approved to help ease the pressure. Okay, well, Surrey is home to the largest Sikh population outside of India. And so the prep that goes into Diwali celebrations here in BC is massive. And if you didn't know it, today is the big day, the Festival of Light, celebrated among many religions and cultures. Tonight, our Anita Bathe is live from a Hindu temple, not in Surrey, but you are in Burnaby tonight, Anita. I imagine it must be a lot of good feelings there.
Yeah, Anita, lots of good energy here tonight and lots of color and lights. A prayer ceremony is about to begin, so a lot of people are heading upstairs. But as you mentioned, I'm at a Hindu temple. It's also known as a mandir. But this week, I also had a chance to speak to other people to see how they're preparing and getting ready for Diwali. And what's clear is that festivities this year are a lot more bigger as people are getting ready to celebrate together again.
At this shop, Indian sweets for Diwali celebrations are coming up fresh. The lineup is out the door.
The busiest time of the year, so we have a long line waiting here to wait for some assorted sweets as well as snacks to give to their loved ones as well as to their friends.
Staff are hard at work, preparing at least 1,000 of these assorted sweet boxes a day for Diwali. The sweets made from ingredients like condensed milk, sugar, and nuts.
We're obviously excited. We're very passionate about what we do.
And beyond the sweets, places of worship like this Hindu temple, known as a mandir, are decorating and preparing for bigger crowds as more people return to in-person celebrations.
Over 10 to 15,000 people come here.
He says that's about double the crowd from last year.
Joy, because good against evil, right? So that's why the feeling of the public is very good on the Diwali day. So it's a celebration.
Diwali is celebrated by several major religions around the world, including Hindus, Sikhs, Jains, and some Buddhists. For each faith, it marks different histories. This Gurdwara is also expecting thousands to attend.
People were holding back from last 2 years. Now everybody's showing lots more enthusiasm, so we will have a lot more people.
Worshippers will pray, volunteers prepare and serve food like roti and rice, and people will light clay oil lamps called divas or diyas. This Diwali is also a time for artists, performers, and spectators to celebrate together. Like here at Diwali Fest in Vancouver. There's Rangoli art, a chance to paint clay lamps and try Indian food.
Being able to actually interact with our art zones, being able to see performances live, and then also just grab a cup of masala chai while you're enjoying the performances. It's just a different feeling.
Artwork and dance performances highlight diverse regions across India.
Diwali is a very special celebration to a lot of different people from the South Asian subcontinent.
Many who will gather in their own respective ways to celebrate light over darkness, good over evil, and joy. Anita Bathe, CBC News, Surrey.
That lineup for sweets, Anita, no joke for sure. There's no leaving it to the last minute. Okay, so it is interesting because we are really seeing the holiday become more mainstream this year now with big stores getting on board. You know, Diwali showing up in different TV shows and on movies as well.
Definitely, Anita. It's not just the South Asian stores that are selling the Diwali goods. They're being sold at a range of places. Now, I want you to come over here for a second and look at these divas, these diyas. They were all lit, but the wind picked up, so now they're no longer lit. But, you know, lighting these is one of the most common things to do on Diwali as a symbol of light over darkness and good over evil. And people all through the night will continue to light these divas as we go on tonight. Anita?
Anita Bathe live for us tonight, celebrating Diwali. Thanks, Anita. Well, it was a sight for sore eyes this weekend. Rain returned to much of the province, ushering in some cooler temperatures and, of course, shooing away that wildfire smoke. But as the CBC's Zara Premji tells us, some communities have bypassed fall and gone directly to winter.
I think even those people who really hated the rain are probably breathing a sigh of relief now.
We're thankful that it seems to be over. The rain has come, and it wasn't just a guest appearance. It may not look like it's sticking around based on what you're seeing, but don't be fooled.
While we will see some breaks to the rain today, a little bit more coming, it looks like, towards Wednesday, more to come next week. So there's plenty more rain on the way.
I think it's really helping the environment. I mean, we were definitely in a drought, so I think it's going to really help the smoke, first of all.
No, I'm relieved. Yeah. It's actually been a long time since we actually had rain in Vancouver, so it's good. There needs to be a balance between sun and rain.
I like it. We had a great summer. Sun was great, but I really miss having a little bit of rain. It certainly changes the grass and whatnot. Things feel a bit fresher.
And that poor air quality that blanketed Metro Vancouver, it's blowing away, as reflected by the Air Quality Health Index forecast, which is low for all parts of the province.
We're really pleased with what things are looking like right now. Air quality is very good across the entire region.
But while the smoke is gone, snow has already started to pop up, with the mountains skipping fall and heading straight to winter. Whistler seeing a big morning snowfall. But while experts are reminding people to break out the snow tires and clear the drains, it's never too late to start other preparations.
Now that we're starting to become part of an off season, is to start thinking about next summer and preparing ahead of time for these sorts of events. So that's looking at things like portable air cleaners, identifying clean air shelters within the municipality that you live in, and taking other actions to protect yourself ahead of time.
And meanwhile, some communities remain under a local state of emergency because of the lack of rain during the summer. And if you're starting to see the temperatures dipping down low, remember, we're still a long ways away from seasonal. Zara Premji, CBC News, Burnaby.
You know, Amy, we always complain when we have so much rain.
I know.
And now I think we really realize that we take it for granted.
We need it. I think a lot of people are just really quite pleased to see so much rain today, which is not typically what you would see on a rainy Monday. We did catch a bit of a break sort of midday, though things dried out and we caught some sunshine, but back to the rain now for most areas, and definitely feeling the cooler temperatures, and they'll continue to get cooler. Right now we're sitting at 11 at Vancouver Airport, 9 out in Pitt Meadows, and 10 degrees as you make your way out towards the Fraser Valley. So taking a look at the accumulated precipitation, we will see it falling quite steadily overnight and in through tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll see it coming later in the day, but you can see right along the west coast of Vancouver Island, and even us around Vancouver and out through the Fraser Valley, definitely getting the brunt of this system. It is going to be a little bit brighter though midweek before we get into more rain as we head towards the weekend. But don't worry, there's a lot of rain in the forecast, and I'll have all the details coming up soon.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Amy.
You're welcome.
Well, Science World is getting a much-needed boost.
The upgrades is going to allow now some of the accessibility challenges that were not taken into account when the Science World was originally built. That will also be fixed, to making sure that all children, regardless of even accessibility, that they will benefit as well.
The federal government is investing $10 million for building upgrades and renovations, as well as new exhibits. After riding out diminished attendance during the pandemic, the tourist destination has struggled since reopening at reduced capacity. Okay, there are a lot of ways to build a career. Just ask Abbotsford's Robin Sather. Now, he built his career out of Lego, becoming the world's first ever Lego certified professional. We caught up with him in Chilliwack to see some of his building skills.
A Lego certified professional is a skilled Lego builder that has taken their hobby and their passion for these little bricks to the next level and created a career out of it. So I get to do all kinds of Lego-based stuff all over Canada and even all over the world, and make cool Lego things happen everywhere. I became a certified professional back in 2005. And the way it happened is I actually helped the Lego company create the program to empower these external builders to do really cool things with Lego. Before then, there really wasn't a lot of opportunity for that. You could go work for the amazing company that is Lego, but you couldn't do it, say, for example, for me staying in Canada and doing it, it was not really possible. So I kind of created the job, and Lego loved the idea, and now there's 22 of us all over the world doing this kind of work. We're going to run a little building challenge. Like millions of kids, I had Lego all over my room. I had creations everywhere, and I didn't really stop as an adult. I still kept building. I still had my Lego bricks, and I would make things and have it in my room and in where I lived in college and all those things. I never really quit. I went into IT as a career, but always in the back of my mind was, I really would love to do something with Lego. And so as a second career, I switched from IT into doing Lego building. Everybody gets excited with Lego because they all have a memory of it. This event is one of my first back from the pandemic, really, and it's been wonderful. And people just want to get their hands on the bricks, build together, show off what they can do, celebrate play. So much fun, and it's been a wonderful reaction from people.
Such cool stuff, and right here in Abbotsford in British Columbia. Amazing. Now, if you want to get a closer look at, say, their spooky Lego masterpieces, they'll actually be on display in Chilliwack's Cottonwood Mall until Halloween, so make sure you check that out. Canada's Competition Bureau is looking for solutions after the cost of groceries went up by more than 10% last month on average. After the break, we'll take you into their new study, including what it will and won't accomplish. Stay with us. Thanks for being with us during our commercial-free live stream. Okay, Jane and Finch is a neighborhood in Toronto, which realtors say grew in popularity about 5 years ago. But just like the situation here in Vancouver, the demand for property meant housing prices became increasingly out of reach for people who live there.
Welcome to Jane and Finch, one of the last affordable communities in Toronto, or is it? A quick search of the neighborhood shows that many of the detached listings that are available are priced over $1 million. And when you look at condos and apartments, you'll see anything from that $299 to $499 range. But let's take a deeper look in. From semi-detached homes to lots 70 feet wide and 120 deep, bungalows on quiet streets, Jane and Finch has a variety of housing types available. So we are at 38 Wheatsheaf Crescent. This detached home just came onto the market. Let's take a tour. This home, inclusive of the basement apartment, has 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and 2 kitchens. This is Teresa, and she's going to show us around.
Hi, Joe. So we have a lovely open concept floor plan, combined living and dining room with chef's kitchen and center island.
Located 3 kilometers away from Finch West Subway Station, close to York University, Parks and Trails, Highway 400, and 401. It also has a beautiful solarium, hot tub included.
So the asking price of this property is $1,249,888. We're located here on a premium size lot, which is very large. We have a 50 frontage by 120 depth.
Asking prices may come as a shock for a neighborhood that has an average household income of around $60,000, well below the city average. The local market was slow to catch up with the rest of Toronto, but really took off about 5 years ago, says realtor Eduardo Ramon, who grew up in the community. And you lived here in this actual complex?
Yeah, London Green Court, man. This is exactly where we grew up.
Ramon's parents bought their townhouse condo for $90,000 in 1993. He says prices stayed stagnant for 3 decades. But now those same units are selling for over $600K. Ramon says the unaffordability of downtown has pushed buyers outside of the core to areas that are close enough.
As a homeowner myself, I'm like, I would love it. I love to see my property value go up. Now, as a person who grew up in this neighborhood and understands the struggles of a lot of the people in this neighborhood who are slowly getting priced out or can't afford to live here anymore, I also feel that.
And they are feeling it too. Do you know that the average price for a detached home now in this community is over $1 million?
Yeah, I know.
What do you think about that?
It's crazy.
I want a decent house. You have to go maybe $1.5 million or something like that.
This goes up, rent goes up. The rent's too ridiculous here as it is. Way too ridiculous.
So renters are feeling the pinch as a result of the rising property values. One resident I spoke with says his rent has gone up $600 over the last 5 years. We're going to have more on the rental market in the coming weeks. From CBC Toronto's Jane and Finch Community Bureau, I'm Dale Manukduk.
Welcome back. Tonight, 3 locations in the Toronto area believed to have connections with China's government are under investigation by the RCMP. Ethel Musa shows us why some people think these service centers, which are found in many countries, could pose a threat.
The resident of this home in Markham, Ontario, denies having anything to do with Chinese service stations.
It's wrong address. No, don't borrow me again.
According to a report published by human rights group Safeguard Defenders, it's one of dozens of such stations around the world, including 3 in predominantly Chinese neighborhoods in and around Toronto. The RCMP says it's investigating whether criminal activity is taking place. Safeguard Defenders says there is evidence people connected to these service stations have been involved in pressuring some nationals to return to China. According to Chinese state-run media, 230,000 telecom fraud suspects were educated and persuaded to return to China from overseas to confess to crimes from April 2021 to July 2022.
In most countries, we believe, yes, it's a network of individuals rather than thinking of it as a physical address and a physical police station where people will be dragged into.
But some worry dissidents and ethnic minorities will also be targeted.
These stations are another tool that Beijing can use to repress Canadians here in the Chinese community in Canada.
Sheng Shui says she's been harassed online by Chinese officials for her activism.
Now, the Chinese police station here, just a few kilometers from me. So I am asking myself, where else I can escape to?
The Chinese embassy says for services such as driver's license renewal, it is necessary to have eyesight, hearing, and physical examinations. The main purpose of the service station abroad is to provide free assistance to overseas Chinese citizens in this regard. The Chinese embassy also says the service stations are staffed by volunteers, not police officers or people who conduct criminal investigations. Idil Musa, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, the Federal Competition Bureau is launching a study into the grocery business. It comes as food prices rise at their fastest rate in more than 40 years. But as Philip de Montenay reports, critics say a simple study isn't good enough and there should be a full investigation.
Grocery bills are going up fast, squeezing Canadians' wallets. Food prices were up 11.4% last month, so the Competition Bureau is set to probe the grocery industry with the stated goal of finding ways governments can help improve competition in the sector. The Bureau will look into pricing, barriers to entry and expansion, and what's being done in other countries to promote competition.
What is surprising to me, frankly, is that the mandate does not include the relationship between retailers and suppliers. Explicitly says that they are not looking at that.
Now, this isn't an investigation. It's not in reaction to a specific allegation of wrongdoing. A study doesn't have the same teeth as an investigation like the one we saw looking into the price fixing of bread a few years ago. Stakeholders in this case provide information on a voluntary basis.
Studying doesn't really help. You know what needs to happen now is the price reduction. And negotiations and talking to the agricultural sector and saying, hey, you know, just the basic necessities need to be brought down.
They're always studying something and nothing ever changes, so, you know, big deal. But, yeah, something's got to give.
Earlier this month, the House of Commons Agriculture Committee voted to investigate food prices. All parties also voted unanimously in favor of an NDP motion calling on the government to tackle corporate greed in the grocery sector. The Competition Bureau will provide a series of recommendations for the federal government in its final report, which it plans to publish in June. Philippe de Montigny, CBC News, Toronto.
There's a new resident at number 10 Downing Street. Rishi Sunak will lead Britain's Conservative Party and consequently serve as the UK's new Prime Minister. We'll tell you more about his groundbreaking win and how the country is responding next.
It's hard to tell who's having more fun, David Suzuki or his grandson. But at 75, Suzuki calls this part of his life the death zone. In spite of these celebrations, he's frustrated he hasn't done enough.
My hope is that when I'm on my deathbed, I'll be able to look at each of my grandchildren and say I did the best I could. I don't expect to save the world, but I'll do everything I can until I die.
Suzuki was a hotshot scientist when television came calling.
Hello, I'm David Suzuki.
He's been the host of CBC's The Nature of Things for 30 years. His work showcasing nature with style and humor and an underlying message: humans are using up the planet.
I'm one person, but we, as a group of people committed to trying to protect a future for our children, are now failing very, very big time.
Suzuki's daughter, Severin, says her father has always been hard on himself.
We had to deal with this all our lives, you know, the very challenging conversations at the dinner table of the world problems.
All of this could be gone.
Suzuki has been controversial. He helped stop clear-cutting in a part of Haida Gwaii. It made him some enemies. Canada's forest industry has a good relationship with Suzuki now. They didn't always.
Because he has such public credibility, we don't like it at all. I mean, who wants someone with David Suzuki's stature saying that we're doing the wrong things?
He's also been called a sellout for helping Walmart green their stores. Suzuki calls it progress.
Most corporations would have barred the doors if they saw me coming. I mean, they thought I had horns and a tail. Really? Now I'm being invited into the boardrooms of corporations. So something has happened.
And that's something that gives David Suzuki a glimmer of hope on his birthday. Margot McDermott, CBC News, Vancouver.
The first major obstacle to human survival in space is gravity, or rather, the lack of it. On surface, you might think that life in a weightless world is, well, invigorating and freeing, and it is for the most part. But take away our ongoing struggle with the forces of gravity, and the body suffers. Bone loses strengthening minerals, muscles atrophy, and blood pools in the upper organs, weakening the immune system. If humans are to colonize space, they'll have to invent something that mimics gravity and keeps our feet on the ground.
Rishi Sunak will be the first person of color to lead the UK. The 42-year-old used to be Britain's finance minister and is the third person to become the country's prime minister in 7 weeks. Margaret Evans now on his historic rise and the pitfalls ahead.
Another day, another prime minister in the United Kingdom. The leadership changes within the governing Conservative Party, whiplash-inducing in recent weeks and months.
Mr. Sunak, can you really unite the party now?
Now, Rishi Sunak, Boris Johnson's former chancellor, blamed by some for Johnson's downfall, is being touted as a unifier. His was the only name on the ballot. It is an astonishing change of fortune for Sunak.
Who will be our next Prime Minister?
Over the summer, he lost out in a leadership contest to Liz Truss, even though his critique of her economic policies proved prophetic.
That would lead to mortgage rates, interest rates going up to 7%. Can you imagine what that's going to do for everyone here and everyone watching?
Truss is now a footnote of history, drummed out of office by her own MPs. Sunak insists he'll be a healer.
I will make it my utmost priority to bring our party and our country together.
But he inherits a party and a country turned on its head by years of discord in the corridors of power.
6 or 7 years of unprecedented political turmoil with changes of government, with governments unable to govern.
This analyst believes Sunak will still have the shadow of Boris Johnson to grapple with.
There are people within his party who loathe him because of what they think he did to Boris Johnson. In that sense, there are people within his party who want him to fail.
Johnson made a last-minute bid to regain power, returning from holiday to canvass for votes, pulling out over the weekend, a relief for some.
I just think it was chaotic when he was in charge, so I don't want to see that again.
Yeah, I'd rather have Richie back in office.
Better than Boris.
There are too, of course, many people here still clamoring for a general election. Their chance to choose the country's leadership, they say, for a change.
That's the CBC's Margaret Evans reporting tonight from London. Well, a woman who bought a house in an Ottawa suburb says she and her daughter could soon be homeless. That's because the home came with a tenant who she says refuses to leave or pay rent. As Priscilla Kisan Huang reports, the homeowner feels betrayed by the Ontario Landlord and Tenant Board.
It could be another 6 months. It could be another 1 year. So I'm frustrated. I'm outraged. I'm angry and I'm sad.
Elsie Kalu stands in front of the house she bought 6 months ago. She's never been inside. This is her third time knocking on her tenant's door this day, her fifth time showing up here after giving 24-hour inspection notices. Each time, no answer.
So what are you gonna do?
I'm not allowed to do anything.
2 people who rented from the former owner are living in her house, so she has to rent elsewhere. To pay for both places, she took out loans, racked up debt, which cost her her job as a financial advisor.
I don't have a job, and it's all because of this. Why would the government allow another person to take everything from one person? I cannot provide social services for another citizen. I'm not rich enough.
Kalu moved to Ottawa last year to access better care for her daughter who has autism. She's missed mortgage payments and might lose the new house. She even got a notice to end her tenancy from her landlord, all while waiting for Ontario's Landlord and Tenant Board to grant her a hearing, something that should take about a month but can now take up to 8 because of backlogs. The board denied Kalu's request to expedite her hearing, saying her situation isn't dire enough.
I'm a reporter with CBC News. I have a few questions to ask you today about your tenancy here.
CBC knocked on the tenant's door. They cranked up music.
I do hear music coming from the house.
Yes.
And closed the curtains. Their lawyer says his clients want the Landlord-Tenant Board to judge whether they actually owe Kalu rent. He says his clients are entitled to stay indefinitely. That's Kalu's fear. She doesn't know how she'll afford her expenses the next few months.
Everything I've worked for, all that I've invested, I could just lose it. My daughter can't end up on the streets. I cannot end up on the streets. This cannot continue forever. I need my home.
Priscilla Kisan Huang, CBC News, Ottawa.
He may be sidelined for the season, but star goaltender Carey Price still hopes to return to the NHL. We'll take you inside the BC Boys rehab plan next. And at 6:36, a live look tonight at Whistler, where a little bit of snow has settled on the mountains. That's got to have ski enthusiasts pretty excited, I'm sure. The good news is maybe there's more to come. Amy Bell has the forecast coming up. Montreal Canadiens goaltender Carey Price is clinging to the hope he'll suit up again for the Habs. As Kwabena Aduro reports, the Vancouver-born player says he's not ready to retire just yet.
Though he suited in a cowboy hat instead of skates for the home opener, fans show their love for Carey Price. Today, the star goaltender insists even though he's not ready to play at a professional level, he's not ready to hang up those skates.
My goal is to just be pain-free from day to day. You know, I'm still having some issues getting up and down stairs, and, you know, carrying my kids up and down stairs is difficult.
Price says he could have surgery on his knee, but he worries with a 50-50 success rate, it's not worth it.
It's something, unless I was in dire need of it, you know, to get through my life, is something that, you know, maybe I would consider at that point. But, you know, right now it's like I'm looking at my young kids and being able to play with them, you know, on a day-to-day is the most important thing for me.
But Price says he's still committed to the team.
Like, I miss being with the guys. Like any player who's not playing will tell you, you know, it's really something they miss the most of is joking around with the guys.
Price is still under contract for just over 4 years with a price tag of $10.5 million annually. But even if he never plays again, with franchise records for most wins and games played, some say the former league MVP has still earned his spot among the greats of this iconic team.
So he was the sort of Hall of Famer of that group. He had to stand on his head many nights. I think the wear and tear from how many games he played, how many shots he faced, eventually caught up to him, and that's why we see him in the situation he is today with his knee issue.
It's part of the cost that you pay, and you know, I've paid it. If I were to do it all over again, would I do it? You know I would.
While Price waits to get into game shape, he's hoping to be more present in the community and has asked the organization about doing more charity work. Kwabena Aduro, CBC News, Brossard.
Johanna Wake staff is off tonight. Amy Bell is here. Amy, we saw a live shot of Whistler, and there was just a little bit of snow, I think, getting people excited.
Yeah, we saw that, you know, that jump right into winter in a lot of those areas. So we got some snow in Whistler. If you're heading north of Squamish, actually, we had snow on the Sea to Sky early this morning. And those mountain passes also, so the Coquihalla Summit, Allison Pass, they all had snow earlier today. And that's what we are going to see over the next couple of days. We're just dealing with these rounds of rain that will move in on us, hoping to catch a break midweek. But for tonight, we're going to be dealing with some more shower activity, and then again tomorrow afternoon. You can sort of see here this next system set to arrive sort of in the overnight and in throughout the day tomorrow. So it's a fairly organized system, and then that next one waiting just behind it. So we do catch a bit of a break in between there. I think we'll start off sunnier on Wednesday and then head into some showers later in the day. Really taking a look, though, at sort of Friday and Saturday, we could see an incredible amount of rain. So we'll just have to keep an eye on things, whether or not it does form and shape up into an atmospheric river. But we're off to a slower start with that rain getting a chance to soak into that dry ground. Hopefully this is the way we'll continue for the next several days, and it won't be this onslaught of rain. What we are seeing for tomorrow is moderate rain for many areas of Vancouver Island. Again, it will be heavier in the morning and then drying out, and we'll see that playing out into the Fraser Valley as well. And we're seeing those temperatures around the 10-degree mark. A little bit nicer in the southeast corner of the province, just far enough away that that system sort of late to arrive to you. You could see a few flurries way up in Dease Lake. And again, most of that snow will be at those mountain passes, and we could see some more snow for winter for Whistler Mountain. As you can see, though, tomorrow with the high of 11, a little bit of sunshine to start on Wednesday before we get back into some rain. And Thursday, and especially Friday and Saturday, all look to be wet. And probably going to be wet right through into next week, too.
Yeah, looks like what we need, Amy.
It is.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Tonight, we are taking you deep inside the Amazon for a closer look at a pressing issue in Brazil's presidential election campaign. What happens in next Sunday's vote could have a dramatic impact on the future of the rainforest. Our international climate correspondent, Susan Ormiston, shows us what's at stake.
We're climbing with a team of Amazonian scientists, passionate about the rainforest and worried about its future.
It's early. It's about 6:30. We came here early to go up
40 meters to the top of this research tower, 220 steps, and we're going up to see something pretty spectacular. To really understand its magnitude, you have to see the forest from above. And as the sun rises higher, that's where we're headed. A spectacular canopy. Before the day's heat, the flying rivers of mist, the green in many hues as far as you can see, the Amazon, 2/3 the size of Canada. These science warriors from the Institute of Amazonian Research and a conservation agency have been here dozens of times, but it's always a wonder. Botanist Beto Vincentini is our guide.
Every time you come to the forest, you'll see a different forest, right? There are so many shapes, forms, and the diversity is so high that you don't see the same species repeating itself very often in a forest like this.
Mario Cohn-Haft, a bird expert, came to the Amazon 30 years ago and never left.
That's the Amazon. That's the charm of the Amazon, the largest undisturbed tropical wilderness in the world.
Its beauty camouflages its critical role in regulating climate. These trees hold vast amounts of carbon dioxide, around 120 billion tons, so changes here will ricochet far away. We're pressing further in on a road barely passable. 40 kilometers takes about 2 hours. Way, researchers like that because when the road's hard to navigate, the logging trucks won't come. For them, this is an open lab, remote, unbroken forest. And at kilometer 41, we stop. Our destination for the next few days. You have to haul in all you need: water, food, hammocks, and then trek in. All you can carry. A rough path ends at a simple base camp. Well, a kilometer in, and we're here, Camp 41. Camp 41 was set up in the 70s to study what happens to the Amazon when it's cut out for ranches or farms. It's called fragmentation. The few outbuildings are plunked down, and they haven't changed much. But a lot of the inquiry now is how the forest will respond to the changing climate.
We got a map of the entire Amazon basin.
It's broad.
That's one big old Amazon you got there.
And where are we?
We're right smack in the middle. It's just a spectacular, enormous wilderness area with more species of everything you can imagine than anywhere else on Earth. The whole world depends on the Amazon rainforest staying intact. This forest is worth infinitely more as is.
Many people still believe in this country and elsewhere that you can take bits of this, you can fragment this forest, and it'll still be okay.
Well, you can in very small amounts, and we already have. The message really is we've already done that, and we can't go any further.
But pressures are rising fast in Brazil to clear more land. To the southeast, illegally set fires clear land for cattle or farming. At least 20% of the forest has been deforested. And under Brazil's president, Jair Bolsonaro, development has soared. Ana Moraes is one of a cadre of young scientists sounding an alarm.
We come here weekly or bi-weekly
and gathering long-term data to discern how the forest will adapt to a changing climate.
It's very, very important to pay attention to it because the climate change is on a tipping point. So whatever we do to change to the better, it has to be done now. The deforestation here is growing very fast and is being backed up by the politicians, the president.
Do you worry what will happen with the election in Brazil coming up?
Absolutely. If Bolsonaro wins, I don't think there's a much brighter future for the Amazon forest. So we elevate the CO2.
Anna and the team are urgently trying to predict what could happen in the future forest, experimenting with carbon dioxide in this mini greenhouse.
So we are trying to understand how the elevation of the CO2 is going to work on the natural forest, on the tropical forest.
This work was started years ago. Down the road, a big, bold, new project called the Amazon Face, laying the groundwork, digging foundations for huge towers which will reach beyond the canopy. The first should be up next month.
Eventually, 16 towers will go up here with their foundations in holes like these. In this part of the forest, they'll form a ring, and then scientists will pump in elevated levels of CO2, in effect mimicking what could happen in the future, maybe 20 years, but speeding up the process. Then they'll study what happens to the forest.
An array of towers.
Back at the National Institute of Amazonian Research, coordinator Carlos Alberto Casada tells us why this research is so critical.
You know, this very CO2 is changing the climate. It's making the plant hotter. Using models, we expect that these areas of the Amazon will become much drier and much hotter in the future. And this probably means that we may even lose the rainforest.
The Amazon hosts tens of thousands of unique species, 16,000 in trees alone, and 2/3 not yet categorized, says Vincentini. He's adamant on one point.
I don't see any reason why we should have any logging activity of tropical forests nowadays.
But you know the argument. The argument is, look, this is a huge forest. There's plenty of room.
Well, but if you have a lot of rarity, like we do, right? Tropical forests are complex, are very diverse. So species are not everywhere. And so you lose diversity. The species that remain there are not able to keep going. So we are bringing a lot of diversity to extinction.
For Beto and his fellow scientists, there's a clear choice. Tread lightly in the forest or risk irreversible damage. And at the end of our tour, we go back to the top for one more view of the world's largest rainforest, a marvel, as it silently waits for its fate.
He's hosted The Nature of Things for some 44 years. At 86, David Suzuki says it's time for a new face. The legendary broadcaster tells us what's next.
One.
The face of a new stamp, decorated war hero Sergeant Tommy Prince, celebrated for his valiant war efforts.
He received the medals at, which was very outstanding for him. And with that, I would just like to say thank you to everyone here today for making this day special and honoring my deceased father.
Prince was and is the most decorated Indigenous veteran in Canadian history. Originally from Broken Head, Ojibwe Nation, a direct descendant of Chief Peguis.
I didn't go too high in school. I think it's worth it to me. I think it's more or less my Army career that helped me out.
Prince remembered most for the 11 medals he earned for his heroism in the Second World War and the Korean War, including one presented to him by King George VI at Buckingham Palace.
I think about that, and I think about how powerful of a presidency must have been to be awarded these types of medals, but also in the face of the things that our people were struggling with back home.
He was a loving, caring man, loved to make people laugh. He liked to be a jokester.
But when he returned home to Canada, racist federal policies meant he and thousands of other Indigenous veterans were denied many of the benefits given to other veterans. When he died in 1977, the decorated war hero was homeless.
Oh, Mrs. Forrester, oh my goodness. Long time since I've seen you.
His son not only remembers his father for his efforts, but his unstoppable sense of humor and caring nature.
If he had $1 in his pocket, and you needed it more than he did, he would gladly give it to you.
We've been mistreated and wrong.
The stamp, another ode to his courage and bravery, with the hope that his story lives on across Canada.
Good lady from you, good man.
Riley Lachuk, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
On November 9th, join CBC British Columbia's Michelle Elliott at a free online UBC alumni discussion about decolonizing arts and culture. Register today at alumni.ubc.ca. And never miss an episode of your favorite CBC drama or comedy again with the free CBC Gem app. Check it out at gem.cbc.ca.
We're sharing really important information with the public, and I feel like this is exactly what our job is, especially as the public broadcaster, especially in morning radio. That's incredibly important.
After 44 years with The Nature of Things, legendary host David Suzuki says this season will be his last. He reflected on all of his adventures with the show with the Nationals' Ian Hanumansing. Take a look.
Hello, I'm David Suzuki.
I'm David Suzuki.
Hello, I'm David Suzuki.
Now, why have you made the decision to retire?
I've wanted to retire for a long time. I'm way past my best before date, but for a long time it was felt if I'd become so closely identified with the show that if I left, they might cancel the series.
I've spoken to some people before who are on the verge of retirement, and they seem tired, and their passion seems to have quelled. That's not the case with you at all. You have lots of energy, lots of passion.
I'm tired. I'm tired. I am in a very privileged state. I'm an elder. And as an elder, this is the most important part of my life because I have no vested interest in the status quo. I don't have to kiss anybody's ass in order to get a job or a raise or a promotion. Now I'm in a position of sifting through a lifetime and saying, what have I learned from that I can pass on? That's my job. And I say to every elder, what have you learned from your life? You know, I'd like to have retired company CEOs, retired economists come out of the woodworks, for Christ's sake, and tell us the truth, that this economic system is what is driving us into the ditch.
Sounds like we're going to still keep hearing from you.
I have no choice.
Yeah, I think we will. Congratulations, David Suzuki, a well-deserved retirement from the show after a huge 30 years. We are looking forward to what you do next. Thanks for watching CBC Vancouver News tonight, and happy Diwali.